The phone call came at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that started like any other normal day. "Mrs. Johnson, this is Mrs. Rodriguez from Emma's school. We need you to come in immediately. Emma drew something in art class today that, well, we need to discuss this in person. Can you be here within the hour?" My hands started shaking before I even hung up. You know that feeling when your world is about to shatter, but you don't know why yet? That pit in your stomach that tells you everything is about to change. That was me, standing in my kitchen, staring at my phone. Emma, my bright, bubbly 7-year-old, had been different lately. Quieter, more withdrawn. She'd wake up crying from nightmares she couldn't explain, and whenever my sister Lisa brought her boyfriend Mark around, Emma would hide behind my legs like she was scared. I'd brushed it off. Kids go through phases, right? Maybe she was jealous of sharing attention. Maybe she just didn't like new people in our family circle. But 20 minutes later, sitting in that sterile school office, staring at my daughter's drawing, I realized I'd been living in denial. The picture showed stick figures, a big man with dark hair, a small girl with pigtails, and words scrawled in Emma's careful handwriting. "Uncle Mark says this is our secret game. To understand how we got here, you need to know about my relationship with my sister Lisa. We'd always been inseparable, despite our 5-year age gap. After our parents died in that horrific car accident 3 years ago, we became each other's entire support system, 2 sisters against the world raising my daughter together, but Lisa had always struggled with men. She had this pattern of choosing guys who seemed perfect at first, charming, attentive, everything she'd ever wanted, but they'd always reveal themselves to be manipulative, controlling, or worse. I'd watched her heart break over and over again. When she introduced Mark at Emma's 6th birthday party 8 months ago, I was cautiously optimistic. He seemed different, polite, well-dressed, worked in IT for a company that contracted with schools. He brought Emma thoughtful gifts and would actually sit down and color with her while Lisa and I caught up in the kitchen. Finally, I thought, Lisa found someone stable. But looking back now, I see the red flags I ignored. Mark would insist on helping Emma with her coat, even when she clearly said she could do it herself. He'd offer to take her to the bathroom at restaurants when I was sitting right there. When I'd politely say I could handle it, he'd laugh it off. "Just trying to be helpful," he'd say with that charming smile. Lisa was completely smitten. After years of dating losers, she'd found her knight in shining armor. She started talking about moving in with him, maybe even marriage. And when I expressed the tiniest concern about how Emma seemed uncomfortable around Mark sometimes, Lisa would get defensive. "You're just jealous that I'm finally happy," she'd snap. "Mark loves Emma like she's his own niece. You should be grateful she has a positive male figure in her life for once." The guilt worked every time. As a single mom since Emma's father walked out when she was 2, I wondered if I was being paranoid. Maybe Emma did need that father figure. Maybe I was reading too much into normal interactions. Emma started mentioning these games she'd play with Uncle Mark. Special games that grown-ups wouldn't understand, she'd say when I asked for details. I should have known then. "To understand how we got here, you need to know about my relationship with my sister Lisa. We'd always been inseparable, despite our 5-year age gap. After our parents died in that horrific car accident 3 years ago, we became each other's entire support system, 2 sisters against the world raising my daughter together, but Lisa had always struggled with men. She had this pattern of choosing guys who seemed perfect at first, charming, attentive, everything she'd ever wanted, but they'd always reveal themselves to be manipulative, controlling, or worse. I'd watched her heart break over and over again. When she introduced Mark at Emma's 6th birthday party 8 months ago, I was cautiously optimistic. He seemed different, polite, well-dressed, worked in IT for a company that contracted with schools. He brought Emma thoughtful gifts and would actually sit down and color with her while Lisa and I caught up in the kitchen. Finally, I thought, Lisa found someone stable. But looking back now, I see the red flags I ignored. Mark would insist on helping Emma with her coat, even when she clearly said she could do it herself. He'd offer to take her to the bathroom at restaurants when I was sitting right there. When I'd politely say I could handle it, he'd laugh it off. Just trying to be helpful, he'd say with that charming smile. Lisa was completely smitten. After years of dating losers, she'd found her knight in shining armor. She started talking about moving in with him, maybe even marriage. And when I expressed the tiniest concern about how Emma seemed uncomfortable around Mark sometimes, Lisa would get defensive. "You're just jealous that I'm finally happy," she'd snap. "Mark loves Emma like she's his own niece. You should be grateful she has a positive male figure in her life for once." The guilt worked every time. As a single mom since Emma's father walked out when she was 2, I wondered if I was being paranoid. Maybe Emma did need that father figure. Maybe I was reading too much into normal interactions. Emma started mentioning these games she'd play with Uncle Mark. Special games that grown-ups wouldn't understand, she'd say when I asked for details. I should have known then. That night, while Emma stayed safely with my neighbor Mrs. Peterson, a retired kindergarten teacher I'd trusted for years, I did something I never thought I'd be capable of. I went through my sister's phone while she was taking a shower at my house. What I discovered made me physically sick to my stomach. Text messages between Lisa and Mark revealed a pattern that was absolutely chilling. Mark had been systematically complaining about my overprotective parenting style and suggesting specific ways to get more alone time with Emma. But what made my blood run cold were Mark's messages about other children, his ex-girlfriends, daughter, his neighbor's kids, even random children at the park. He described them in ways that made my skin crawl. Lisa's responses ranged from naive dismissal to what I can only describe as active enabling. "Emma absolutely adores you," she'd written just 2 weeks ago. "Sarah's just being paranoid because she's been hurt by men before. Don't let her negativity affect your special relationship with Emma." I screenshotted everything before Lisa came back, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove straight to Mark's previous neighborhood. I'd found his ex-girlfriend's name, Rebecca, buried in those disturbing text messages. It took me 3 different coffee shops before I found someone who actually knew her and could put us in touch. Rebecca's story was hauntingly, devastatingly familiar. Her 6-year-old daughter Mia had started having nightmares and sudden behavioral changes during Rebecca's 8-month relationship with Mark. When Mia finally found the courage to disclose inappropriate touching, Rebecca had ended the relationship immediately. But Mark had somehow convinced everyone, including some of Rebecca's own family, that she was just a vindictive ex-girlfriend making false accusations to hurt him. I tried desperately to warn other mothers, Rebecca told me through tears as we sat in her living room. But Mark was so charming, so convincing, so good at playing the victim. He made me look like the crazy, unstable ex. I even started doubting myself until I found his laptop. My heart stopped. What was on it? Rebecca had discovered Mark's extensive collection of inappropriate images of children, including photos he'd secretly taken of Mia and other children in their family and social circles. She'd immediately reported everything to the police, but Mark had somehow managed to wipe his devices completely clean before they could obtain a proper search warrant. "He's incredibly smart about this," Rebecca warned me, gripping my hands tightly. "He knows exactly how to work the system, how to manipulate families and legal processes. He specifically targets single mothers with young daughters, usually ones who are isolated or desperate for help and support. The profile fit our situation perfectly." Since our parents' tragic deaths, Lisa and I had been each other's only family support system. Mark had clearly identified our vulnerability and systematically exploited it. Before I left, Rebecca gave me contact information for 2 other mothers whose children had encountered Mark. Their stories were devastatingly similar, inappropriate, touching disguised as innocent games, enforced secrets, and systematic grooming that escalated over time. But this time would be different. This time, we had evidence. I called Lisa the moment I left Rebecca's house, my voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "We need to talk about Mark and Emma. Right now. This can't wait another second." "Oh my God, Sarah, not this paranoid jealousy again." Lisa sighed heavily into the phone. "I thought we were finally past all your trust issues. Bring Mark to my house in exactly 1 hour. We're settling this once and for all." When they arrived, I was ready. The confrontation was explosive from the very first moment. When I laid out Emma's drawing and showed them the screenshots of their own text messages, Mark's charming facade cracked for the first time since I'd known him. His face went completely cold, calculating. "You went through Lisa's phone without permission?" he said, his voice dangerously quiet and controlled. "That's actually a federal crime, Sarah. I could have you arrested for invasion of privacy and harassment." But Lisa was staring at the evidence in front of her, her face growing paler by the second. "Mark, what is this? Why are you talking about my niece like this in these messages?" Mark immediately shifted tactics, transforming into the wounded, innocent victim. "Babe, she obviously doctored these screenshots. This is exactly what my psycho ex-girlfriend Rebecca did. Created completely fake evidence to try to destroy my life and reputation. Sarah's been desperately looking for any excuse to break us up since the day we met." "What about Emma's drawing?" I demanded, holding it up. "What about the specific details she described to the trained school counselor?" "Kids have incredibly vivid imaginations," Mark said smoothly, his voice taking on a patronizing tone. "Especially kids who watch too much inappropriate television and don't have proper boundaries consistently set by their parents." The gaslighting was absolutely masterful, but I was completely prepared for it. "Then explain this," I said firmly, pulling out printed copies of Rebecca's detailed police report and the contact information for the other mothers who'd come forward. Mark's expression shifted to something genuinely dark and threatening. "You have absolutely no idea what you're messing with here, Sarah. If you actually pursue this ridiculous fantasy, I will make absolutely certain that you lose custody of Emma permanently. I'll testify in court that you're a completely unfit mother who systematically coaches her daughter to make false accusations against innocent people. I have 8 solid months of carefully documented evidence of your paranoid, unstable, jealous behavior. Are you actually threatening me right now? I'm giving you a final warning. Drop this insane vendetta immediately, or you'll lose absolutely everything that matters to you. Your daughter, your sister, your reputation, your job. I know expensive lawyers who specialize specifically in parental alienation cases. By the time I'm finished destroying you, Emma will be living with a nice foster family, and you'll be lucky to get supervised visits once a month." Lisa was sobbing now, completely torn between her loyalty to Mark and the mounting evidence piling up in front of her. "Mark, please, just tell me the honest truth. Did you inappropriately touch my niece?" For just one moment, Mark's mask slipped completely, and the contempt and cold calculation in his eyes was absolutely terrifying. "You really want to know the truth, Lisa?" Mark said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Fine. Your precious little niece is a manipulative liar who can't tell fantasy from reality. But if you want to destroy your own family over her wild imagination, that's entirely your choice." The complete lack of denial told us everything we needed to know. That's when Mark made his fatal mistake. As I reached for my phone to call 911, he lunged forward and grabbed my wrist, squeezing hard enough that I knew it would bruise. "Don't even think about it," he hissed in my ear. What Mark didn't realize was that I'd been recording our entire conversation on my phone, which was already automatically uploading to cloud storage. His threat, his physical aggression, and his non-denial were all captured permanently. I broke free from his grip and immediately dialed 911. "I need police at my residence immediately. I have a documented child predator in my home who just physically assaulted me and threatened my family." Mark tried desperately to leave, but I'd quietly locked the deadbolt and hidden the key. "You're not going anywhere until the police arrive." "This is false imprisonment," he shouted, his composure completely gone now. "Lisa, tell this psycho to let me go right now." But Lisa was reading through all the text messages on my phone, her face growing paler and more horrified with each screenshot. The woman who had defended Mark so fiercely was finally seeing him with complete clarity. The police arrived within 8 minutes. Officer Martinez and Detective Chen listened carefully as I methodically presented all the evidence. Emma's drawing, the recorded conversation, the screenshots, contact information for Mark's previous victims, and the fresh bruises on my wrist. Mark immediately demanded a lawyer and claimed I was a vindictive, unstable single mother trying to frame an innocent man. But when Detective Chen casually mentioned Rebecca's previous police report and the clear pattern of similar accusations from multiple families, Mark's confident demeanor began to completely crumble. "We'll need to conduct a formal interview with Emma using a specially trained child forensic interviewer," Detective Chen explained professionally, "and we'll need to examine your phone and electronic devices for analysis, Mr. Richardson." "I absolutely do not consent to any searches whatsoever," Mark said quickly, panic creeping into his voice. "That's perfectly fine," Officer Martinez replied, calmly. "We'll simply obtain a warrant. In the meantime, you're prohibited from having any contact with the child or her family." Within 2 hours, Child Protective Services had arrived to begin their own investigation. The investigation moved with lightning speed once Mark was officially arrested. His laptop contained hundreds of inappropriate images of children, including photos he'd secretly taken of Emma during our family gatherings over the past 8 months. The FBI traced his online activity back several years, revealing a sophisticated pattern of targeting single mothers and systematically gaining access to their children. Mark's phone revealed a disturbing network of communication with other predators across multiple states, sharing detailed techniques for grooming children and avoiding detection by parents and authorities. The evidence was so overwhelming and damning that his expensive defense attorney advised him to immediately accept a plea bargain. But the justice system had much more in store for Mark than just criminal charges. Rebecca and the other mothers I'd contacted came forward with their own documented evidence and testimonies. A comprehensive class action lawsuit was filed against Mark for damages to all the children he'd harmed over the years. The civil case allowed for a much lower burden of proof and opened him up to significant financial consequences that would follow him for life. The investigation also revealed that Mark had been using completely fabricated references and falsified background checks to secure his IT position at a company that worked directly with local school districts. When his employers discovered the criminal charges and the false information on his employment application, he was immediately terminated and permanently banned from the entire industry. Local news outlets picked up the story when Mark was formally arraigned on multiple felony charges. Local IT worker arrested in multi-state child abuse investigation ran on every television channel and newspaper in our area. His photo was broadcast across the entire region, leading to even more victims, and their families coming forward with additional evidence. The community response was swift and absolutely merciless. Mark's landlord immediately evicted him from his apartment. His gym revoked his membership. His social media accounts were flooded with warnings from parents throughout the community. The social consequences extended far beyond any legal punishment. But perhaps the most satisfying justice came from a completely unexpected source. Mark's own family members, who had initially defended him throughout the investigation and called his accusers money-hungry liars, finally saw the undeniable evidence during the preliminary court hearings. His mother, who had publicly called me a vindictive, jealous woman, issued a tearful public apology and testified about Mark's troubling behavioral patterns in childhood that the family had ignored or actively covered up for decades. Mark ultimately pled guilty to multiple felony charges to avoid a trial that would have exposed even more victims and evidence. He was sentenced to 15 years in state prison and lifetime registration as a sex offender. The court-ordered financial restitution would fund comprehensive therapy for Emma and all the other children he'd systematically harmed. Mark's assets, including his car, savings accounts, and personal property, were completely liquidated to pay court-ordered damages to his victims. 6 months later, Emma is absolutely thriving. She's back to being her bubbly, confident, joyful self, though she still attends therapy sessions once a week to continue processing her experiences. Her teacher tells me she's become a natural leader. In her classroom, often the first to comfort other kids who seem scared or sad. Lisa and I have slowly rebuilt our relationship, stronger and more honest than it ever was before. She's committed to intensive therapy, learning to recognize manipulation tactics, and trust her own instincts about people. We've both become dedicated volunteers with a local organization that teaches parents and children about predator awareness and prevention. The most profound change in our family has been our approach to secrets. Emma now clearly understands the important difference between good surprises, like surprise birthday parties, and harmful secrets like inappropriate touching that adults try to hide. We have weekly family check-ins where she can tell me absolutely anything without ever fearing she'll get in trouble. I often think about that life-changing phone call from Emma's teacher and how dramatically different our story could have been if I'd ignored those warning signs or if Emma hadn't found the courage to draw that picture. Children frequently communicate trauma through their art and play when they don't yet have adequate words for their confusing experiences. The guilt of not recognizing Mark's predatory behavior sooner will probably never completely leave me, but I've learned through therapy that predators are expert manipulators who deliberately choose their victims and use our deepest love for family against us. Emma's incredible courage in creating that drawing, even when she'd been systematically conditioned to keep dangerous secrets, saved not just herself, but potentially dozens of other children who would have become Mark's future victims. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had serious concerns about a family member or close friend's behavior around your children? How did you handle the situation? What warning signs did you notice? Share your story in the comments below, because protecting our children truly is a community effort, and your experience might help another parent trust their instincts and take decisive action when it matters most.